The question, of course, is now that this opinion has been published and been made public, now what? Now what happens? This is what no one seems to want to say, because if you knew the answer, then there would be no more conversation, there would be no discussion. We couldn't yell at the Republicans and the crazy believers in God.
As millions of women know firsthand, contraception is often vital to their health and well-being. That's why the Affordable Care Act ensures.
I think, is this the guy who used to do the voiceover for the West Wing Week? It sounds like it, doesn't
It's
it?
funny voice, yeah.
Yeah. He sounds like he's doing a voiceover. Of course, he is reading directly from his notes.
As millions of women know firsthand, contraception is often vital to their health and well-being.
Yeah.
That's why the Affordable Care Act ensures that women have coverage for contraceptive care, along with other preventative care like vaccines and cancer screenings.
And again, the Supreme Court specifically said this opinion does not count towards cancer screenings, vaccines, blood transfuse, or anything.
We will work with Congress to make sure that any women affected by this decision will still have the same coverage of vital health services as everyone else.
Yes, they will.
President Obama believes strongly in the freedom of religion. That's why we've taken steps to ensure that no religious institution will have to pay or provide for contraceptive coverage. We've also made accommodations for nonprofit religious organizations that object to contraception on religious grounds.
Yes.
But we believe that the owners of for-profit companies should not be allowed to assert their personal religious views to deny their employees federally mandated benefits. Now, we'll of course respect this Supreme Court ruling, and we'll continue to look for ways to improve Americans' health by helping women have more, not less, say over the personal health decisions that affect them and their families.
Okay. So he knows the answer too. And now I'm going to go briefly with you through the Supreme Court opinion. And I love reading these things. I told Mickey, when this came out, I was like, oh, so happy. It's like Christmas in July. I get to read the Supreme Court opinion. It's lovely. Okay, the Supreme Court says very clearly, at issue here are regulations promulgated by the Department of Health and Human Services under the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act of 2010, or known as Obamacare, which I'm adding as editorial, which as relevant here requires specified employers' group health plans to furnish preventative care and screening for women without any cost-sharing requirements. Congress did not specify what types of preventative care must be covered. It authorized the Health Resources and Services Administration, a component of HHS, to decide, which is interesting. So the administration, without Congress, actually decides what is in there. Non-exempt employees are generally required to provide coverage for the 20 contraceptive methods approved by the Food and Drug Administration. HHS has also effectively exempted religious nonprofit organizations with religious objections to providing coverage for contraceptive services. Under this accommodation, get ready for it, John, the insurance issuer must exclude contraceptive coverage from the employer's plan and provide plan participants with a separate payments for contraceptive service without imposing any cost-sharing requirements on the employer, its insurance plan, or employee beneficiaries. In these cases, the owners of 3 closely held for-profit corporations have sincere Christian beliefs that life begins at conception that would violate their religion to facilitate access to contraceptive drugs or devices that operate after that point. So, and all of this is marked up. You can find it in the show notes. So now the question is twofold, right? Really only onefold. Can a for-profit corporation, which they're now calling closely held, but in reality, this show is a closely held for-profit corporation, if you look at it technically, can that say, we are a person under the law, and the Supreme Court goes very clearly into the Dictionary Act, can we say, hey, we object to this just like a church would? And the Supreme Court said, yes, you can. And that has nothing to do with the contraceptives or birth control at hand. That is just a legal opinion. And you can't have it one way, have it this way one day and the other way the next day. Persons, our corporations, and if they are not public, if they're the opposite is closely held, then they may call on religious exemption from this particular part of the Affordable Care Act. But here's what's interesting, and it's very spelled out very clearly in the opinion. John, do you know who, in the case of a nonprofit organization that says we don't want to provide a number of these contraceptive services based on religious beliefs, did you know that A, the women covered under that plan don't have to pay and can still get these services, and that the nonprofit corporations also don't have to pay for it? Do you know who actually does pay for it?
Who?
The insurance companies. It was a part of their deal. It was a part of the Affordable Care Act that the insurance companies, in order for them to, and this was all about the insurance corporations, to get this fantastic deal known as the Obamacare.
Right, an insurance scam at its base.
Yes.
Nobody seems to want to mention.
Well, and that's why they're not talking about it. The insurance companies are required by law to pay for these services for corporations that are exempt under religious beliefs.
Okay,
and,
so let me get this straight.
Let me read it to you. The effect of the HHS created accommodation for the women employed by Hobby Lobby and other companies involved in these cases would be precisely zero. Under that accommodation, these women would still be entitled to all FDA-approved contraceptives without cost sharing. The insurance companies shall bear the burden of this, as is the case with nonprofit religious organizations. Everyone was fighting for the fucking insurance companies so that they didn't have to pay for it. That's all that this is about. It's spelled out very clearly, and the Supreme Court says very clearly the insurance companies are liable for the costs of corporations who opt out of this on religious belief.
So the women did not lose anything.
Will not lose anything.
Nothing. They have the same. They get the same. Whatever they want, they get.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So all this crap that we've been hearing on the mainstream media is just a smokescreen.
Yes, sir.
You'd have to say at this point that it had to be orchestrated by the insurance companies themselves.
Yes, sir. Of course.
I'm not a sir yet. I'm not an officer.
Hi. Exactly right.
And so everything that we've heard is nothing more than it's just bull crap. And then, of course, the Republicans and the bots, the O-bots, they just take advantage of it because they know that it'll help them get votes.
And you can terrorize people.
They're the liars.
Yes, you can terrorize people.
This woman,
yes,
Terry O'Neill,
yes,
who associates this with apartheid. She should be ashamed of herself. She's the head of the National Organization for Women. She's scum.
Yes. All of these people are scum, and they are. And the funny thing is, it's really these people who are abusing women over their back over something which is really a non-issue. Because so yes, there's a legal definition of what is a person and who may claim a religious exemption. But it doesn't mean you don't get access. It doesn't mean you have to pay for it. In fact, quite the obvious. And
opposite.
The opposite. Well, yes, the opposite. Just to give you one little extra piece of information, how does the Supreme Court measure whether this will be a burden on religious organizations for-profit organizations on religious beliefs? They did it purely by counting money. The court concluded that the contraceptive mandate substantially burdened the exercise of religion by requiring the companies to choose between compromising their religious beliefs and paying a heavy fee, because if you don't pay for that, you have to pay a fine, close to $475 million more in taxes every year, or if they simply refuse to provide coverage for the contraceptives at issue, or roughly $26 million annually if they dropped health insurance benefits for all their employees altogether, which is really kind of a drop in the bucket. So the Supreme Court, the way America is set up, it's all about money. It's all about business. They said, oh, is this a burden on you? Let's see, does it cost you more money? Yeah, it's a burden. It has nothing to do with God or your conscience or killing babies or not killing babies. It's all about money. It's about, is it a burden on the pocketbook of this company? And two, Who's going to pay for it? Oh, I'm sorry, insurance companies. You took this deal. You took this huge insurance scam, and as a part of that, to get it through, to get it past, the religious crazy people, you had to say, listen, if someone doesn't agree on contraceptives that are deemed, abortive, then, well, okay, we'll spring for it. We'll pay for it. We'll pay for it out of our own pocket. And that's what all this is about. They didn't want to pay for it.